Honorable members, may I please assist the guest who just joined using the name human to rename him or her. May he please open his or her video and advise myself about his or her name so that I can rename him or her. And I assume that the human is for human settlements. If maybe it's the surname or name, I would like to have the initials so that I can properly rename the guest.
Let me officially welcome you into this meeting of our preparations, and we appreciate your response in honoring this meeting as per the invitation. We also requested the Office of the Ministry or Minister to extend the invitation to MECs. And she has just indicated who is here, who is not here. For those who have not apologized, we are hoping that they will be joining us as and when we continue with the meeting, because I think the reason for us to have a joint meeting with all participants or all relevant MECs from all the provinces, it's very important. Hence, we are going to discuss and have a clarity, be on the same path in as far as this new grant is concerned. And we want to appreciate that invitation, the extension of the invitation from the Minister's Office. Well, let me also welcome the honorable MECs who are on the platform, the chairpersons of the portfolio committees who have made it to the meeting. We also extended our invitation to them. Hopefully they are on the platform. We will identify them as and when we go. Team Treasury, we also welcome you in the meeting. Members of the committee, select committee on appropriations, thank you very much for honoring the meeting. Thank you very much for doing your work. And I hope that we will have fruitful engagements. And the agenda is on the screen as I speak. Having dealt with item number 1, the opening remarks and the welcoming by myself, I'll go to item number 2, which is apologies. I'll request Lubabalo or the Secretariat to give us, if it's Lubabalo or maybe Estelle, to give us the apologies. And before you do that, Lubabalo and Estelle, there's an apology from Honorable Karim Yunus, who is in a place, or who is driving in a place where the network is unstable. He might be in and out of the meeting. Understandable, we had an engagement. He briefed me. We are noting that apology. Any other apology?
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson, and honorable members. Good morning, honorable Minister. Chairperson, we from the committee, we only have that apology from him. Another apology that we received is from Minister who is participating in a community engagement program as indicated by the Minister, but we received a formal apology on Monday. I study about this meeting, together with the 2 MECs that the Minister has indicated that they are together. So,
okay.
Apologies.
Thank you. For the first time since we started with the visual meetings, Lubabalo, check if there's something wrong with your Wi-Fi. Your network is not it's not stable. Having said that, it's now fine. Thank you. Members and all participants, you are requested, as usual, to please open your video as and when you speak, for you to be seen, and for also IT and communications to have you in record. It's one of the it's one of the expectation and the rules that we apply in the visual meetings. Unless otherwise you have a problem with your network, and also you can indicate to the chairperson that you are unable to open the video due to the network. But we know that members will not just say it for the sake of saying it. You will cooperate and open your videos as we continue with the meeting. Members will also be expected to raise their hands through the raise your hand icon as and when they want to speak. But we know that there are those who are struggling with the technology in terms of finding the icon or their gadget. Some are using new gadgets. Please call the attention of the chairperson if you want to speak. I will now go to the agenda. I'll go to number 3, the briefing by National Treasurer. I understand Mr. Emmanuel Pillay is going to stand in or is leading the National Treasury. Can we see your presentation, sir? Pillay?
Good morning, Chair.
Is it you instead of Pillay?
Yes, I'm leading the team for now. Would like to apologize for our DDG is not here, but the acting DDG and Hattin will join at 10 o'clock. So yes, Mr. Emmanuel Pillay will do the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Singh. Thank you. You can continue, madam. Team Treasury, can you continue?
Emmanuel, please start and put it on slideshow.
It is on the slideshow. Oh, is it on the slide? Go back to where it was. Emmanuel, there's a background sound. Maybe it's the one that is disturbing this.
Yes, good morning, Chair. Can you see the presentation now?
We can see the presentation, but Uhaliseng is saying she prefers it to be on a slide. Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I just had an issue with my computer. Thank you and good morning once again, Chair, honorable members from the committees, Minister of Human Settlements, MECs of Provincial Departments of Human Settlements, and our colleagues at the National Treasury and Department of Human Settlements. So the presentation, as per the brief of the committee, beside asking for the first quarter of 2022-23 performance on the grant, we were asked to give a brief background in terms of the introduction of the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. So it was introduced as a window in 2019-20 within the existing Human Settlements Development Grant. So it was a sort of a component within the grant. And it was done in that way to ensure that there was some sort of preparation platform available before the grant was established as a standalone grant, which was done in 21-22. The key outcomes of the window at that time and even now is to provide tenure rights, ensure the provision of healthy and secure environment. And the last one, the community partnerships, which is critical, as I will show later on in the presentation, in terms of success of this program. The community partnerships and participation is critical there. Now, outputs, some of the outputs that are on the framework itself, which is available on the Division of Revenue Bill or the Act and the published frameworks, included the programmatic province-wide informal settlements upgrading strategy, and a whole list of other outputs available there. So I'm not sure if we could go through each one, but as I indicated, the third one, the social compacts, is one of them, which sometimes contributes to projects being stalled, and also ensures that there's success if it's done in a correct way and done according to plan there. In terms of the outputs, other outputs, we also had the provision of water, electricity, and sanitation services. Now this is both grid and off-grid, and also informal settlements provided with stormwater, refuse removal, bulk connections, water, and electricity, generally within the purview of local government. So it involved a lot of collaboration between provinces and local government to ensure that these services are in place. Some of the outputs added in subsequent year included the land and also the upgrading of services, the hectares of land acquired for in situ upgrading there. The allocation in the 2019-20, this is when it was part of the HSDG grant. Provinces were allocated 2.7 billion rand in 1920. This is equated to around 15% of the Human Settlements Development Grant at that stage. Some were slightly more, such as Western Cape, while some were slightly less, such as the Northern Cape, which are just about between 12 to 13% around there. In the 2021 year, you'll notice that the HSDG grant has reduced quite significantly, partly brought about by reductions, and obviously this was the time when we had the COVID lockdowns, and there were reductions to grants overall. So it's not only the human settlements grants that were reduced, but also the grants in other sectors as well. So it decreased quite significantly to 14.8 billion. And the window as well subsequently decreased by around 3 billion rand there. But in percentage terms, the amount available for the UISP was actually increased to 17%. So it was 2% more than it was in 1920 financial year. Now, before I go to that slide, just to indicate that when during our analysis and looking through the reports that were provided by the National Department and provinces, it was very difficult for us to delineate expenditure between HSDG and UISP. So we are not able to get a clear picture of, for example, if the 2.4 billion was allocated to the UISP window, how much of it was spent and on what. And that's in terms of the spending. But if we go to the performance as well, so this slide in terms of performance is more for illustration rather than to give you an idea of what performance was. And I say illustration because the whole issue of reporting and monitoring on this grant has been very inconsistent. And the level of reporting that we get, especially from provinces, where many of them have not reported on certain outputs. So we're not sure whether they've not reported because they have not delivered on those outputs, or it's just an issue of not reporting. And this has been consistent right through the implementation period, right up to 21-22 financial year there. So provinces are obviously doing things. As you can see, the upgrading plans prepared on the first output there. But as we go on, you'll see that it's very scant in terms of details as we have from provinces. And this is one of the issues that we highlight as the challenges that the grant perhaps needs to address, is that the reporting needs to be firmed up, it needs to be consistent across all provinces. So in 21-22 is actually worse in terms of the reporting that we receive. And I'll explain that a bit later. But as I indicated, this is just to illustrate the issue of poor reporting by provinces on these indicators there. For the 21-22 financial year, there was 3.8 billion rand allocated for the grant. During the year, we received a request from the National Department of Human Settlements to stop 60 million rand, 20 each from Free State, Gauteng, and Limpopo, and reallocated to Northern Cape. Now, this is obviously a sector decision taken after reviewing performance, and there was an issue of risk of underspending in those three provinces, while Northern Cape were able to demonstrate capacity to absorb additional funds and spend it. So they had the capacity to do it. And taking the decision, the Human Settlements requested that 20 million rand be stopped from these three provinces and the 60 be reallocated to Northern Cape. So overall, there's no change on the allocation. It's just the change between provinces that occurred in the 21-22 financial year. Excuse me. So spending on the 21-22 financial year, you'll see that provinces on average, there was underspending of just around 10% there, around 408 million rand. Now, provinces that did underspend and where you'll see quite clearly the underspending is Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest and Western Cape there. Now, Eastern Cape and Gauteng, before I get to Gauteng, although Eastern Cape has spent, it looks like they spent the entire funds. But if you drill down in terms of how this money was spent or what classification in terms of the spending, you'll see that the entire allocation was actually transferred to the Housing Development Agency. So we have been meeting with provinces over the past few weeks in terms of the midterm reviews, looking at their spending on all sectors. And human settlements is one of the sectors that we did a review. And provinces have been reporting that these transfers have been made to, for example, the Eastern Cape Human Settlements has been made to the HTA for purchase of land. But we still need to verify those and confirm that those funds were actually spent on that. Because what was concerning for us was that a lot of the funds were transferred in the last month of the financial year. If you drill down even further, it's the last 2 weeks of the last month of the financial year. And this raises concern for us. Similarly with Gauteng as well, around 300 million was transferred to the HDA in March itself. Other provinces also have issues with underspending. Limpopo was one of them, and Western Cape as well. I'm just going to go to the next slide, which will show you what the outcome of the rollover process was. So this is the rollover process, the provisional rollover process for 21-22. So this process is run to take into account unspent conditional grant funds at the end of the financial year. So the process is that if you as a province have underspending at the end of the financial year, you need to prove that the unspent funds are committed to identifiable projects. And if you're able to do that, and it falls within the rules in terms of Treasury regulations and the Division of Revenue Act, then you can get the funds rolled over to the next financial year, provided that you have proved the commitments over there. So these numbers are provisional because the audit process is still undergoing, and we expect that to be completed by the end of September. So we'll have a firmer idea in terms of the numbers, in terms of spending, what is approved as rollovers and what's going to be surrendered. But given past trends, we don't expect any material difference between what we have now and the audited numbers. So at the end of the financial year, of the 407 million that was underspent, we were only able to confirm that 298 million was committed to identifiable projects. So that means 298 million rand will be will be rolled over to the 22-23 financial year as part of the grant, so that provinces can spend these funds. So this provisional approval has already been communicated to the provinces, so they have an idea of what's being provisionally approved. So it doesn't hold them in terms of implementation. They still can go ahead because they got an idea in terms of what amounts have been provisionally approved there. So concerning is that 109 million rand will have to be surrendered back to the National Revenue Fund, mostly attributed to Gauteng and Western Cape, because they were not able to prove that the entire underspending was committed to projects, and they had plans to spend this money over there. This is obviously the first year of the grant as a standalone, so we don't have any historical trends to show in terms of rollover and surrenders, but this is how it looks for the current financial year or the last financial year. Now, just a point on the stopping and reallocation there. I did mention in this previous slide the 60 million that was taken away from 3 provinces and reallocated to Northern Cape. Now, if you look at it from a total allocation perspective, it doesn't make a material differences to a province like Gauteng. Out of a budget of of just over R1 billion, if you remove 20 million, it doesn't make a material impact on them, but it does for Northern Cape, because the budget allocation increased quite significantly from 76 million to 136 million. The point I'm making here is that perhaps the sector needs to consider a different approach in terms of stopping funds from provinces that are not performing. And the case in point here is Gauteng, because only 20 million was taken. Excuse me. Only 20 million was taken away from them, but they ended up underspending by 237 million. So so what we are saying, there was scope to take away much more from them, from Gauteng and even Limpopo, because Limpopo, even with the 20 million taken away, they still underspent by just under 100 million rand on that one. Although their underspending was given as a rollover because they were able to prove that the funds were committed. So Gauteng in effect lost the 83 million rand that will have to be surrendered back to the National Revenue Fund once the rollover process is concluded finally. So we're saying perhaps widen the scope in terms of stopping, because it will avoid the sector losing these funds. If these funds were perhaps stopped and reallocated, if more funds perhaps were stopped and reallocated to maybe KZN or Northern Cape as examples, because they tended to spend their funds at the end of the financial year, then although the funds would have been stopped from, let's say, Gauteng or Limpopo, the funds would still be in the sector. But in this case, the 83 million rand will be lost to the sector. So it comes back to the National Revenue Fund, and the sector loses that funds. And that could have been used to deliver services in terms of informal settlements upgrading. There. The 22-23 financial year, as I noted on the research report by the committee as well, spending has been quite poor in the first quarter. If you look at the first 5 provinces from Eastern Cape to Limpopo, all spending under 10%. Now, when we look at conditional grant performance across all sectors and different conditional grants, we expect performance in the first quarter to usually be at a slower rate, and it tends to pick up in the second, third, and fourth quarters. But this clearly presents a risk, because although we expect it to be low, it's not low as 4% in terms of KZN, or even no spending in terms of Eastern Cape over there. So it's clearly a concern. Mpumalanga to Western Cape seem to be okay for now, but we still have to monitor and check that there's no stalling in terms of spending or progress over there. And just to note that Gauteng and Limpopo will still have to factor in their rollovers. So Gauteng will still have to add in 153 million rand. Limpopo will still have to add in just under 100 million rand. So taking that into account, the expenditure looks even worse than what it is currently. So it's clearly a risk that needs to be flagged now and monitored over the ensuing quarters to ensure that at the end of the day, financial year, we have spending and we have performance to match the spending as well. So just in terms of the risks and challenges we see on the ground from our analysis and also from the reading of the reports that we receive in terms of the Division of Revenue Act. Reporting, as I indicated, has been inconsistent, and it's difficult for us to gauge what performance is if we have inconsistent reporting. Perhaps the sector should look at a standardized format in terms of reporting, so provinces can report in a standardized way, and we can use that to gauge performance. This was particularly bad in 21-22. Now we used the evaluation report to look at the performance overall. The evaluation report is done at the end of the financial year, and it's submitted by the province and the national department. So it's evaluation done at 2 levels of government. Excuse me. So what we found is that the evaluation report were not submitted by 5 provinces. So it's very difficult for us to gauge what the level of performance on the ground entirely has been if 5 out of the 9 provinces have not submitted their evaluation. And the evaluation looks at all a total sort of review of the entire grant for the whole financial year. We can get information from quarterly reports and things like that. But again, even those reports are inconsistent there. And even the provinces that do report are not reporting across all outputs that were identified in the framework or the business plan. So stemming from the engagements that we are having with provinces currently, in terms of our midterm reviews, our mid-year reviews, one of the issues that provinces did highlight was that business plans are not being signed or approved on time. Now, this is a sector sort of issue that they need to look at in terms of ensuring that business plans are signed on time. I did note from the research report as well that transfers were not made or were made late in 21-22. And this could be a reason because the national department will not transfer funds to provinces if the business plan is not signed off. So we did, from previous experience with the sector in terms of the business planning process, we did pick up that provinces are not submitting plans that meet the standards in terms of what's in the frameworks, the allocations, and all the conditions. And this could be part of the reason that the business plans are not signed on time. But just to ask that the sector look at this to ensure that even in the current year and future years that the business plan is signed on time so that transfers at least can be made according to the payment schedule. So this is a complicated program, the informal settlements upgrading, and there's many steps to cross to ensure that these services are provided, and this is obviously putting strain and delays, and some of the things that provinces will have to do include feasibility studies, environmental impact analysis, social facilitation surveys, working with the municipality as well. It's very important, as I indicated earlier. A lot of these outputs are within the purview of local government. So collaboration with the municipalities is crucial, and there have been delays, such as examples I picked up from reports. Engineering designs are not approved on time. Project delays and additional costs incurred due to poor performance. This has been a long-standing issue across most sectors, not only human settlements, where contractors are not performing according to the standards that are required of them. And this poor performance results in delayed projects, and also poor construction that will sometimes or most times result in additional costs being incurred to perhaps rebuild or redo what the contractors did not do properly there. Social compacts with communities to explain roles and processes. This, as I indicated earlier on in the presentation, is crucial because provinces need to be consulted at each step of the way to ensure that so everyone is on the same page and there's no unnecessary delays. And if you go on to the next slide, like community unrests, people settled in way of services, and these things can be avoided or at least mitigated if the community consultation is done according to plan. The business forums stalling progress has been also highlighted in other projects and other sectors as well, but it continues, and it's clearly an issue for the sector that needs to be settled there. I also mentioned earlier the transfers that provinces are making to entities such as the housing development agencies. While provinces have indicated that they did realize outputs for it, we still need to verify it. So what's concerning for us is the magnitude and the timing of these transfers made to the agencies, that especially towards the end of the financial year, where significant portions of the grant funds are made to these agencies. SCM and procurement delays as well. We did highlight this on previous presentations on the Human Settlements Development Grant, for example, but it still continues to plague the sector. So rising from the challenges that we did identify earlier, the reporting and monitoring, especially from a provincial level, needs to be firmed up. So the National Department is responsible for overall monitoring and coordination and consolidating of these reporting of these reports as required by the Division of Revenue Act. But they can't do that unless they get quality reports from the provincial departments. The business plan approval process, it's in the framework itself. So provinces know, or the sector knows a year in advance, what are the timeframes in terms of the business process, business plan approval, what needs to be submitted when, by which date, by who. So the sector, I suppose, needs to look at the process to ensure that the plans are approved on time. Coming back to the issue of contractor performance, there needs to be rigorous program and contract management to ensure that these contractors are monitored during their implementation, so that they are held accountable for poor performance. This will obviously alleviate the unnecessary delays and extra costs that are incurred by the sector. Engagement through social compacts. So from the little data that we're able to pick up in terms of what provinces are doing in terms of their outputs and their non-financial information, we found that planned engagements with social compacts were not being done by all provinces on time or in terms of the number that they planned for. So this, as we indicated, is critical to the success of the program. So this must be done according to plan. In terms of Section 16, provincial departments are required to notify the National Department, the National Treasury, and provincial treasuries of any transfers that they're making to organs of state, such as the HDA and other organs of state. If they're making any transfers, they need to provide us with the agreement that they have with the agency and a payment schedule. So we just highlighted this here because provinces are not complying with this clause in the framework. We need to know how much is being transferred to agencies and when in a payment schedule. So it'll enable us to monitor whether it's being done according to plan. So, for example, if a province transfers a 200 million to to an agency at the end of March, we don't know if it was part of the payment schedule because we didn't receive it. Now, in previous financial years, it was a requirement that National Treasury had to authorize this, but to reduce the administrative burden on provinces, it was changed to just require National Treasury to be notified, and so we are not being notified. I know from provincial treasuries as well, there are some gaps. I'm not too sure on the national department side, but from our side, there's definitely non-compliance by provinces, and we need to be informed of this so that we can monitor it. That's all, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pillay. We are going to take both presentations before we can engage with the presentation. I see already members of the committee have started asking questions, and I will request that when you get an opportunity, I saw Mr. Ryder, Honorable Ryder, please ask that question, but as and when you present, if you see something that is of interest that you can address during your presentation, you are allowed to do so. We now go to the next item, Department of Human Settlement, and I will hand over to the Minister, Minister Kubai. Then she will then indicate who's going to make a presentation, but I think she needs to give remarks as the leader of the delegation. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Can we request that the presentation be removed of the National Treasury?
Yes.
Chairperson, thank you very much for this. Good morning to you. Good morning to the MECs. Good morning to the Select Committee members. Good morning to chairpersons of provinces, all officials, both in terms of our departments, National Treasury, Department of Human Settlement, and in the provinces, and members of officials in Parliament. Can we, yeah. Let me start here, Chair, acknowledging, I think National Treasury has just reflected where the informal settlement grant, when it started, and perhaps it would have helped in the presentation if they covered the metros, because the grant operates in terms of the provinces and in terms of the metros themselves. We'll cover that as we do the presentation in terms of their performance. We focused overall, Chair, on some of the issues, and I was hoping that National Treasury will indicate. I know this one is also new, but as I arrived in the portfolio, we found discrepancies on the grants within human settlements. We've written formally to the Minister of Finance to request a review of the grants, because in our view, current grant system also does not assist us to perform better, but similarly, it is too constrained. And lastly, Chair, it does allow for leakages in the system, in the manner that the grant framework, the DORA grant framework is determined and how it's done. For example, you are able to send money to say to a metro to say, these are the areas, let's say issues around human rights specifically, where you have people who do not have water, who do not have sanitation. Those two areas are human rights issues. Now, you'd find that the grant allows, for example, a metro to prioritize doing a sports field over provision of human rights services. And we acknowledge that, yes, we are human settlements, we are not Department of Housing. That's why the issue of services are important. But we are saying there should be an allowance in terms of where you do. For example, you have a metro prioritizing fencing of a graveyard over provision of, for example, bulk services and upgrading of the informal settlements. Now, with this again, part of the issues, and I'm going to say the team will take us through the presentation, but I thought let me just highlight. The first one was around the grants, the challenges in terms of the grant system. The second issue, yes, we acknowledge that there's no performance. There hasn't been previously alignment between, for example, where you have the metros and the provinces. So it's only now that we're starting to ensure that there should be alignment. For example, previously, metros could do a business plan. they will present it between themselves and national and not be including the provinces. We've changed the system to try and ensure that even the provinces can have an input through our MINMEC, where we're forcing alignment. And that, I must acknowledge, has caused the delay that Mr. Pile was talking about in terms of approval of business plans. From where I'm sitting, I believe that we can approve business plans for the sake of approving, but what we are trying to do is to put a system that allows us to have this oversight over time and not miss the deadlines. So you'd see that with the metros, we did not approve them on time because quite a number of issues were just a concern. And we couldn't accept the business plans not being aligned to national, to province in terms of targets. And this is what the Auditor General has raised with us as a sector, to say there is no coherence, there isn't alignment between national, province, and local. So following that, that's where we started to try and ensure that there is alignment, and that's what we're doing. The other point I want to raise, Chair, in terms of the work that we are doing in informal settlements, the challenge also around the municipality in terms of capacity, but also the time it takes to approve, for example, in their planning units, the plans. The declaration of the townships, which becomes a problem, or establishment of townships so that we can be able to move faster. So those are some of the challenges that we encounter as we improve in terms of the performance of the grants. What we have tended to do now is to focus on those areas and ask the municipalities if they need support from us as national in terms of technical support. Many of them have said they've got capacity, they will be able to do the work, and therefore we should be able to allow them to do the work. But we remain concerned because it takes long for an area to be upgraded for the approvals by municipalities so that we can be able to have the declaration or the establishment of a township in time. And the team will also deal with that, just to explain the impact of that in terms of the service delivery and the time it takes on that. We continue in terms of our sector as well. The different budget cycle between ourselves as province and national with the municipalities will continue to be an issue. Because when you are planning this side, the others are closing their books. When you are closing the books this side, the others are planning. As you know, our financial year end is March and starts 1st April. The financial year end of the metros that we are supporting this and other municipalities is the end of June, and 1st July is the beginning of their new financial. So the synchronization and alignment sometimes is not the same. And these are some of the engagement that we've agreed with Minister of Finance to say, are we able to assist? How can we do that so that we can see the impact in terms of the work that we do? But mainly the capacity that we see. We have raised concerns where we do, but we are finding each other between ourselves and the provinces, and in terms of ensuring that we can be able to align the funds. We've started the discussion in the sector as well at MINMEC. If you look at Northern Cape, Chair, because we're talking to Appropriation Committee, the National Treasury is here, I would like to raise this. The allocation of funds tends to look a bit discriminatory, especially towards rural areas and semi-urban areas. I'm saying this, and that's why we're trying to figure out how do we improve our grants so that they can support. So you'll have the USDG, you'll have the ISUP for metros, but semi-cities which have the same burden, you take Rustenburg, continues to have the same burden in terms of urban migration. You take, you take Kimberley, you take up in Kimberley Mall, and you take Nelspruit. You'd find that when you analyze, and then you take Newcastle in terms of the provinces, when you analyze the urban migration, the same burden that the cities or the metros are having, the semi-urban areas are having. And we currently do not have the necessary support, because if you look at the MIG funding, does not respond in terms of your informal settlements upgrading, but also in terms of what we are providing as USUP, which is the urban, not USUP, but USDG grant. So that's one of the things that why we've called for National Treasury to review the grant system, because we are perpetuating the inequality between urban areas, semi-urban and rural areas, because if the funding is not the same, then you have a problem. You look at the overall funding of Northern Cape, for example, would be equated to a program, for example, in Gauteng. But when we look at the burden of responsibility, you'd see that there is actually a need to look at reconsidering the responsibility. That's why consistently you see Northern Cape spending more, or sometimes even getting into trouble because they overspend in terms of the budget. And that's a recipe for disaster for us. And that's why we're looking into that. So I thought these are some of the issues I want to raise overall. I'll request the team to lead in terms of the presentation, and then the MECs will come as we do the responses as they deal with their specific provinces, Chairperson. Thank you very much. And I hope I've represented them well in terms of raising the issues that they've been raising in MIMMEC that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister.
I'm with the team in the department. I was trying to see the officials led by the acting DG, who's Sindisiwe Ngcongo. Then we'll get, I'm not so sure, I think it's Sokopo who will do the presentation on our behalf. If I can request the team to do. Yeah, Dr. Sokopo, proceed.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, the Chairperson, the members of the Appropriation Committee, MECs, as well as.
My apologies, Dr. Sokopo. Can you see your
presentation?
Presentation?
Can you please upload, Paul? Thank you. Here I am. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you put it on slideshow, please? Thank you very much. The next slide. I will focus on my presentation, Chairperson, on just providing you a brief background and the context in which we are upgrading informal settlements, also providing you with the implementation, how we have then tried to change things to focus on implementation of the informal settlements upgrading program, as well as the performance of the informal settlements upgrading partnership grants. Next slide. Therefore, the purpose is to present the implementation of the upgrading of informal settlements program, as well as the performance, as I have indicated, of informal settlements upgrading partnership grant. As Minister has also indicated, the grant itself is for both the metropolitan municipalities as well as the provinces. The framework for upgrading of informal settlements, Chairperson, is defined in the program called UISP in short, which is the upgrading of informal settlements program. This program outlines what is the upgrading process, what is the outputs, as well as the key responsibilities, the roles and responsibilities of the three spheres of government. The next layer is the ISOPG, which is the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grants, which provides us with parameters and conditions for accessing the grant, which is now the framework itself that is in DORA. The grant itself now buys the output. It outlines then that what is approved in terms of the business plan. So those are the three things that we utilize in terms of the upgrading of informal settlements. This grant started as the colleague from National Treasury indicated in July 2021. So 2021-2022 was the first year of its implementation, other than the window period that has been indicated. The main issue that I would like to emphasize is that informal settlements upgrading is an incremental approach. We adopted an incremental approach in terms of the upgrading of informal settlements. I will outline what that incremental approach means a little bit later. But I would like to also give you where we come from. This program has been there for a long time. However, the lens through which we were utilizing upgrading informal settlements, we focus more on the provision of housing instead of implementing the program, which is UISP, that is in our National Housing Code. So We also tended to focus more on upgrading plans instead of focus more on implementation. So there was a lot of energy that was put on ensuring that we have the right plans in terms of the upgrading processes. More funds were spent on rudimentary services without any plans for permanent services. Rudimentary services are necessary because they provide that a package called the human rights package, but more funds that are actually spent on rudimentary services and not moving towards the permanent solution, that was a little bit of concern. And also the understanding of both the grant framework as well as the program itself. There are also still challenges with regard to pipeline planning as well as infrastructure planning. However, despite all of these things that I'm mentioning, we have a target of 1,500 informal settlements upgraded to phase 3 of informal settlements upgrading program by 2024. Next slide, please. This is the next slide, just provide you with just generally the numbers in terms of informal settlements. And we know that the Gauteng, the KZN, as well as the Western Cape has got the largest number of informal settlements. And those large number of informal settlements are mainly 50% of them are mainly in the metropolitan municipalities, and the rest of them are in the secondary cities, which is the examples that were mentioned by the minister, Newcastle. Next slide. The overall achievement, despite the challenges that I will present to you, but for now we have a baseline for informal settlements upgrading. We know where we are, what we have done thus far. We have established a dashboard on informal settlements, as well as a framework for monitoring at project level, monitoring, as well as ensuring that then there's that relationship between the business plans and the reporting framework. There are 3 levels of monitoring, as I've mentioned: the program, performance, grant for non-financial, as well as the expenditure. Then we also have ensured then that there's provincial and municipal engagement and support on upgrading of informal settlements, and systematize the informal settlements upgrading in line with UISP. Systematization, it means then that we know that there's different phases and what we are expecting from each phase of informal settlements upgrading. We have redefined the outputs, as also the colleague also mentioned, what are the outputs that are expected in each one of those areas of upgrading. We are moving not completely as yet towards digitalization of planning and reporting. And by end of 2021-2022, we know that we have 1,284 informal settlements that were in various stages of upgrading, not completed, but in various stages of upgrading. Next slide. Those are the main achievements on the overall. But I had indicated to you that there's a systematization of upgrading process. And the phase 1, which we are calling pre-feasibility, that's when you now find an informal settlement and you're not sure who lives there, or whether that land is suitable for upgrading or not upgrading. And therefore we done the first phase, which is your pre-feasibility, to do social facilitation, talk to the people, determine who owns that land, deal with all these environmental tests, desktop studies.
Sorry, ke kopa o mute. Thank you. You can continue, Doctor.
Thank you, Chairperson. The main output of this phase is to ensure then that we have a draft upgrading plan, and also estimated costs when it comes to the upgrading of the settlement, which is the totality of that settlement. How much will it cost to upgrade that informal settlement, as well as also ensuring that then that community compact is achieved. The next phase, so that is the first part of the upgrading. The second part of upgrading is now dealing with pre-planning studies, detailed planning design, ensuring that we have land, we have enough bulk, and interim on provision of interim services. The major issue here is to ensure the formalization, because it's important to go through the formalization of that township, which is what the minister indicated as township establishment. There are certain things that need to be done before that township, as well as also there has been an outcry with regards to the availability of bulk infrastructure for upgrading. So the the installation of bulk is happening in this phase, as well as ensuring then that you, while you are still doing all those planning issues, you are also providing that human rights package under the interim services, water, sanitation, at least grade the roads, and also in some cases provide also electricity in those informal settlements. Next slide. The third phase, which is now your final stage of informal settlements upgrading, that's when then you would then provide your permanent municipal engineering services. That previous slide, yes, that's when you provide the previous slide. You provide the permanent, which is the third phase, your permanent municipal engineering services, your water, your sanitation solution, your roads and stormwater, as well as electricity. And that is the last phase of informal settlements upgrading. So it's important then that individual, yes, this is the slide, individual services are provided at site level. So that is the phase of informal settlement. So we have two types of intervention here. We have a site level intervention, which is where you put your water, sanitation, electricity at site level, and also provide the household with title deeds, which are still dealing with that, as well as at settlement, that in a settlement, you want to make sure then that there's stormwater drainage, as you know that because of climate change and all of these things, we don't want the settlements, even when they have upgraded, then they still have floods. So we ensure that the stormwater drainage, there's proper roads, there's public lighting, there's public spaces, and all the essential amenities. On the overall, the township has been proclaimed. So next slide. The next slide just shows the relationship between that which I have just presented and what is in the grant framework in terms of those three phases. Next slide. I'm going to now quickly deal with now the performance, or the non-financial performance. Annually, that is now 2021-2022. Yes, that's the slide. 2021 annual the provincial performance. By the end of 2021-2022, we still had 165 informal settlements that were in phase 1, and 309 that were in phase 2, and 136 that were in phase 3. It means all of these things that I have mentioned that needs to be happening in each one of these phases. However, we only had 20 that had completed phase 3, 20 that have only completed phase 3. So hence, we're saying that these were the settlements, 610 of them at provincial level that were in different phases of upgrading. It's encouraging. However, we want more that are going to phase 3. That is what we are pushing for. And phase 1 and phase 2 provide that pipelining so that then we reach phase 3. Next slide. Next slide also provides now the service sites that have been delivered by the provinces in the 2021-22 financial year. As you see that in terms of the Eastern Cape as well as Gauteng, we did not have any service sites, but we can report service sites in all the other provinces, 21,075 all in all of those informal settlements, as well as approved layout plans that we had 63 approved layout plans in Eastern Cape, as well as Limpopo and all the other provinces. In terms of the metros, our national performance is that from phase 1 we had 137, phase 2 366, phase 3 171, and 2 only completed phase 3, which means everything has been done and now completed phase 3. Formalization has been done, as well as all the infrastructure are at site level. 674 informal settlements were upgraded at various levels by the metropolitan municipalities. In terms of the service sites, we have 3,596 service sites, and no sites in the city of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, as well as Mangaung. So that is a little bit of concern in that regard, and also no informal settlements that have approved layout plans. These are the pictures that are showing you previously. These are the pictures that are showing you just what that upgrading looks like. We're not going to be expecting a house, but this is, for example, these are one of the settlements where at Rugby Club, City of Joburg, where then they found there's electricity. And on the left-hand side, you are just seeing the clearing of the site in one of the informal settlements in Ekurhuleni. Next slide. So when we do site visits, those are the pictures that we take when we do site visits. When we're talking about layout plan for an informal settlement, this is what we're talking about. It's no different from any other township, whether it's high income or low income. That is what we are wanting to achieve, is that the layout should be a very good layout plan. Hence, we are encouraging also in terms of ensuring that all the public amenities, as well as the roads and infrastructure, proper roads and proper infrastructure are installed. Next slide. Right, so this is now Q1 performance. So all that I was showing you, other than the pictures, is the 2021-2022 performance. In terms of Q1, in the Eastern Cape, there are 112 informal settlements that are in the business plans, and now there are 112 outputs that we are expecting by the end of the 2022-23 financial year. The report from the Eastern Cape indicates that they are still busy with procurement, and they will start doing the actual implementation in Q2, which is a little bit of concern. And they indicate in any way that there are no challenges that they are experiencing. In terms of the phase 2, they have 30 informal settlements that are in phase 3, and also they are indicating that all projects that are at procurement phase, including remember the previous one that I've mentioned there, that they are still at procurement phase. They are also highlighting the SCM processes, your procurement challenges, and they indicated that in terms of the remedial action, they will appoint, or the appointment of contractors will be concluded through the appointment of the project resource teams, which in short, they are called PRTs. In terms of the Free State, they had 12 informal settlements in phase 1, and they have not completed, they have not done much with regard to this, and they are citing issues around procurement, and only 2 informal settlements where we see movement, and those 2 informal settlements are managed by the Housing Development Agency, which is the HDA. So they are indicating that one of the remedial work is to ensure then that they're expediting the issues around procurement, which is worrisome. Next phase, next slide, sorry. The next phase, it is now 14 informal settlements. They are going through all those pre-planning approval so that they can then do township establishment. They indicated there's good progress with regard to this one. They are at 95%, which is good in terms that they are still in Q2, starting Q2, but this is the Q1 performance. 95% has been done. 2 settlements have received environmental authorization. All of these performance at least indicates good performance, but they are also indicating that the approval process with the other sister department that deals with the environmental approvals has been delayed. So all the other outputs are waiting the approval processes that are mentioned here, which is your environmental approval. Next slide. The next slide is now dealing with the phase 3, which is now the phase where all the other construction, the actual construction is going to be happening. And the good news is that the contractors, in terms of this, the contractors are on site, and all the challenges that I mentioned there are challenges that are related to procurement, to construction, which means where the contractors found that there's high water table, they have to deal with a hard rock. However, there's also some disputes with regards to the contractors, as well as also some delays in terms of procurement in the few projects that are at slow, which is on, I think, about 2 projects that are slow in terms of the construction. So there are also some interventions that are put in place to ensure then that they're dealing with all those areas where they are underperforming. Next slide. The Gauteng phase 1, they have planned, there are 10 informal settlements and 12 projects in there. They are also indicating that they are still busy with the social compacts with regard to community participation and so forth and so forth, and before they move on to the next phase. And so at least there is good progress with regard to this one. Next slide, please. The next phase of Gauteng is dealing with all the phase 2, pre-planning studies, which there's not enough progress. There's zero progress with regard to this. Maybe 1 or 2 that where we can see progress, but you can see that there is absolutely limited progress. The large percentage, 90%, 95% of the work has not yet been done. Next slide. The next slide, there are 30 projects also that where we're supposed to have the on-site services, but nothing has been completed as yet. And they are citing the funding for alternative sanitation that has not been done, and also the procurement that needs to be done, that they still undertaking. So that is the plan was to put water and sanitation services at site level. That is also a concern with regard to Gauteng. KZN, as you see, that they've planned for phase 1, 35 informal settlements, 13, they will do social facilitation and pre-feasibility studies in 18, and there's good progress, as you see, despite the fact that they have been affected by floods in April, but at least there is good progress that has been shown. Next slide. Also, in phase 2, there are around 20 informal settlements where they are at various phases of pre-planning. They are also showing a lot of progress with regard to ensuring that the pre-planning studies are completed. Next slide. Also, as you see, the land and the bulk infrastructure that they are busy with, also there's good progress with regard to that. Next slide. Now, installation of permanent services in terms of KZN, they indicated they want to install water, sanitation, also put up roads in 18 informal settlements, as well as electricity in 1 informal settlement. And there's work that is underway, although they do cite some delays in terms of the SCM and a few other things. However, we are not concerned because they are showing good progress. Next slide. Next slide is Limpopo. Limpopo also, we are concerned about Limpopo. 13 informal settlements, the 18 projects are planned, but nothing has been achieved. And the challenges with regard to reporting in terms of the social facilitation in Limpopo. Next slide. In terms of pre-planning, also they wanted to do pegging of the sites. There's right now 6 projects. There's 0% of work that has been completed, but there's only one that has at least 90%, and 1 project at 60%, and the other project at 1%. However, the concern that we have with Limpopo is that some of the progress that they've made are currently not in the business plan, and they're supposed to come to submit a revised business plan. In terms of the phase 3, they have 11 informal settlements. Also, 5 projects are planned to deliver that, but however, nothing has been done yet. And there are several projects where there is at least some progress, but not very good progress. They are citing delays in approval of engineering services, as well as dealing with excessive hard rock and spillage of rainwater and so forth during the construction process. Next slide. Next slide is Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga, they have planned about 25 informal settlements going through the pre-planning stages. However, they have reported zero progress, but they did not provide us with any challenges to why they have not progressed as much as we were expecting them to. Next slide. Next slide. Mpumalanga has wanted to provide water services, sanitation, and also install roads and stormwater in 6 informal settlements. And at least in here, there is progress. They've already completed about 1,652 service sites where they have installed water and sanitation. And there are 7 projects that have in-kind payment. So, but they still have to do some revision of the business plan with regard to ensuring then that they are on course. The next one is Northern Cape. Northern Cape shows very, very good progress. 8 informal settlements were planned for. 5 has been completed, phase 3, which means the installation of water and sanitation at site level, as well as installation of roads and stormwater throughout the settlements. 5 have been completed. 1 is at 84%, 1 is at 60%, and the other one is 54%. Although they are citing that those that at 54% and 60%, there are some construction issues that, like the high water table, hard rock, that they are experiencing. However, they also indicated there are also community issues where they would have to then deal with community facilitation, where then communities are unhappy, but they are showing very good progress. Next slide is Northwest. Northwest also is a concerning province where they have planned to do all those pre-planning studies in various informal settlements, and they have not shown any progress for now. And the progress that they have indicated is about the procurement of land, and they are saying that they have found the land, but they are still doing due diligence, and it's taking a little bit longer than they expected, and they are assisted by the HDA in dealing with that. Next slide. Next slide is the Northwest now providing in 18 informal settlements water, sanitation, and putting up roads and stormwater. But 10 projects are at procurement level. 2 projects, they have appointed a developer to do the designs. 2 projects are at 15% completed, and 2 are 100% completed. And they've also appointed a project manager for those ones that they have not started, and they are not citing any challenges. The last one in terms of the Q1 progress is the Western Cape, which had 13 informal settlements that they have planned to do social facilitation, and they have indicated that they have concluded the social facilitation, and that for one project, but that one project includes 5 informal settlements. So they have utilized several bodies like SAWIC and Tembaletu in terms of that. The next slide. The next slide, Western Cape indicated that they will do those pre-planning studies and they have not reported any performance with regard to that, as well as bulk infrastructure that they had planned to install, as well as the provision of interim services. They only reported that they have only, in terms of interim services, 1 informal settlement where they have installed those interim services. Next slide. Next slide is the last slide in terms of the Q1 performance with regard to the Western Cape. There are 8 informal settlements where they would provide water and services, 12 where they will provide sanitation services, and 11 informal settlements where they would provide roads and stormwater. And they are at 1 project, they are still busy with planning and packaging it, and 3 projects are under construction, and there are there's one project that has not yet started, but there's 7 that they have not reported any movement, whether it's a procurement phase or what is happening with the other 7. They also indicated that they wanted some of the challenges that they have is when they are negotiating with the community, because informal settlements upgrading sometimes requires then that you do some movement of people, so that then it's open up for roads, especially if you want to put up roads and stormwater, that some communities are unwilling to move to the new site that is used for decanting, but they will then appoint a facilitator to assist them with regard to this one. So in terms of the non-financial performance, that is the performance of Q1 as well as what I have presented for 2021-2022. My colleague Lucy will present now the financial performance for 22-23 and 21 and 21-22. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Lucy. Thank you, Dr.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, MECs, and members of the committee, good morning. I will be presenting the financial performance. Chair, the financial performance is the same as what my colleague in National Treasury has presented. We're going to start with the financial year of the the financial year of the metros that has just ended, the financial year of the provinces that ended on the 31st of March 2022. So Chair, is basically the same as what my colleague in National Treasury has presented. The only difference when I looked at his presentation with mine is the Western Cape figures, but we still have to confirm. Chair, as presented earlier on, this was the first year that the grant was introduced, and is the 3.9 billion, and we have transferred all the money to all the provinces. And Chair, just to confirm, 3.5 was spent and the unspent funds was 382. The difference between the National Treasury and ourselves is the Western Cape. Chair, we'll still have to look at the final audited figures, because AG has finalized the audit on the 31st of July. Then this information will be upgraded. Honorable Chairperson and members, by that particular point in time, we were asking the provinces, those that were sitting with the unspent funds, to let us know if they are indicating that they will be requesting for rollover. And Gauteng, out of the 236.9, they said they are going to request a rollover because that was the amount that was unspent, and is the same amount that was reflected by National Treasury. The same as Limpopo, Chair, 97.799 million. They said they're going to request a rollover. However, Mpumalanga have 19.7 that was not spent. By that time, when we had discussions with them, they indicated that they were not going to request for a rollover. Chair, we can see that the Northern Cape, and based on the non-financial information that was presented by my colleague with the Northern Cape, we can see that during the year, because they were performing very well when it comes to the informal settlements upgrading partnership grant, we had to reallocate 60 million, and everything has been spent by end of that financial year by Northern Cape, and the non-financial information is showing us that Northern Cape is the one that is performing very well when it comes to the grant. And then the Northwest, Chair, 22.6 million was not spent, and they indicated that they are going to request for a rollover. And Chair, we can see that with the Northwest province, the Northwest, they've committed, according to their commitments, they were saying that they had 65 million commitments when they requested for the rollover. However, their unspent funds was 22 million available. Therefore, they requested their provincial treasury to repurpose 43 million from the HSDG to ISUPG. Chair, we don't know if that one has been done, but we informed them that these are two separate grants. There's no way that we'll take money from the HSDG that was unspent so that it can come and be approved as a rollover on the informal settlements upgrading partnership grant. So Chair, this is the same information as what has been presented by National Treasury. And Chair, just to add on what my colleague from Treasury has said, when you look at the Eastern Cape and you look at the non-financial information, it is true that Eastern Cape have transferred the grant to HDA, and it's true as well that Gauteng have transferred the grants to
to HDA. Hence, you can see that on the servicing of sites from my colleague, Dr. Sokopo, there was none from Eastern Cape because the biggest chunk of the transfers was done towards end of the financial year. Chair, let me put forward that we had several meetings with the provinces and together with National Treasury to talk and discuss the requirements of Section 16.3, as my colleague has spoken about it, regarding the implementing agent or regarding the appointment of another organs of state to implement projects on our behalf. And Chair, we have already agreed with provinces. We had a technical min-make on Monday. And we have agreed as a technical min-make that we need a session together with National Treasury so that we can talk about the transfers of the grants to the other organs of state. We are not only looking at the HDA, Chair, we are looking at the other organs of state because they are not only using HDA. Gauteng is transferring funds to the municipalities as well. So, Chair, looking at what my colleague has spoken about regarding Section 16, we are still going to have an intense discussion together with the provincial treasuries, National Treasury, the national departments and the provincial department together with the HDA in that regard. Can you go to the next slide, please? Chair, the next slide is giving the current financial year. So on the new financial year, we are sitting with 4.1 billion. And as of the end of the first quarter, we have transferred 1 billion. And Chair, we can see that the expenditure there against the transferred funds, you can see that Eastern Cape, they haven't spent against what we have transferred to them. Free State, they've spent 22, Gauteng, they spent 12, KwaZulu-Natal, they spent 12. And Chair, we know that in KwaZulu-Natal, because of the disasters that happened in the first quarter, it was impossible for the province to continue with the implementation of the program. But however, they've told us that since then, on the second quarter, they have started with the implementation. We can see that Mpumalanga, Chair, they spent 98% of what has been transferred to them. And then Northern Cape and Northwest, we can see that they spend more than what we have transferred to them. But Chair, what we did during our technical min-make, the meeting that we had with the provinces, we requested all the provinces, especially the ones that are showing that they are spending more than what has been transferred to them. We requested the provinces that we need to separate the actual expenditure versus the accruals. We know that as National Department and Provincial Department, we are working on the cash basis of accounting. So the possibility of Northern Cape and Mpumalanga and Northwest, you'll find that they are accruals. So we have requested the provinces to submit to us what is part of the accruals from the last financial year and what is the actual expenditure. And then we'll be able to see the provinces that are doing very well. And Chair, the Eastern Cape, they are reflecting a zero. We had a discussion at Technical min-make whereby the HOD from Eastern Cape indicated that they were still busy with HDA and finalizing of the clause on because they have appointed HDA, the Housing Development Agency, is their implementing agent when it comes to the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. Can you go to the next slide, please? Chair, as my colleague has indicated and the minister has indicated, we are transferring the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant to provinces as well as the metros. And we know that 30 June is end of the financial year of the metros. However, the metros, Chair, they are working on the accrual basis of accounting. So the figure that we are reflecting there as 76.2% that has been spent, we know that it is subject to change because the metros will be submitting their final AFS to the Auditor General and National Treasury on the 31st of August. So we are keeping track because they're on the accrual, they're still processing more of the invoices that are coming. So this information that we are presenting today on the metropolitan municipalities is more of the preliminary figures, and we'll have the final figures once the AG has done the audit. So basically the final audit, the final figure that we'll be reflecting on as final spend as of the 30th of June will be around October when the AG has finalized the audit of the metros. However, Chair, during the year, metros were not doing very well. we can see that Buffalo City, Nelson Mandela, Mangaung, City of Ekurhuleni, and City of Joburg, they had a portion of their allocation being stopped and reallocated to eThekwini. And Chair, when you look at the one that was not touched during the year, City of Tshwane was doing very well when it comes to the informal settlements operating partnership grant. However, the reallocation, it went to eThekwini, and then City of Tshwane and City of Ekurhuleni were not affected by the reallocation because they were performing very well. And Chair, the preliminary expenditure that we are reporting now, we are saying we are sitting with 938 million that is not spent by the municipalities. However, this figure is going to change by the time we receive the final figure from the metros, and by the time we receive the final audited figure from the Office of the Auditor General. So Chair, that will be the end of my presentation regarding the expenditures. Thank you so much. Therefore, Chair, we are requesting the committee to know the report and they can provide the comments on the reports. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Team Human Settlement, members of the executive committee from the provinces will participate also during questions sessions. We are now going to, let me appreciate the presentation from Human Settlement from the two colleagues. But before I give to the members, there are comments that I want to make, and I'm going to request the team from the select committee, the support staff, to help identify members who want to raise questions on the two presentations. And I think one has identified that the two presentations, they speak to each other, and there were disclaimer from Human Settlement on the issue of Western Cape that they still need to verify the figures as presented by Treasury. From the presentation and also linking with the inputs by the minister, there's an inconsistency in terms of the reporting from the provinces, and I have a question that is directed to National Treasurer. The first part of the question as to what is the main cause of this. Have you diagnosed the cause of this inconsistency as you analyze the expenditure or the utilization of this grant as introduced? And the second part of the question is to both National Treasury and Human Settlement, and to provincial departments as well, because they have that responsibility. What is it that you're doing to address these identified inconsistencies? Because the latter presented two presenters, Doctor and the other member from Human Settlement, they have emphasized that you have had a technical min-make and you have engaged. So I think from that point, you were able to identify these problems, and you were able to agree on how to move forward and how to deal with these issues. Our most interest as appropriations also, because we are the ones who are appropriating money. Hence, we know that we have a select committee which is directly responsible for human settlement. But as we appropriate money, we always say that we will follow the money, the spending of the money. My question is transferring of funds to housing agencies. and even the latter speaker spoke about this transferring of money to these agencies, and being recorded as full expenditure in the department's book is not necessarily an expenditure by the department. The committee, I hope I represent the committee because I'm speaking on behalf of the committee. As the committee would like will need you to consider, or we would like to consider inviting these agencies where funds are transferred to assess their expenditure and how these agencies are held accountable for both the expenditure and deliverables that has been budgeted for. We are not taking a responsibility of at the provincial level, but we are just doing our responsibility. Hence, we also invited chairpersons or members of the committees, portfolio committees on human settlement from the provinces so that we do this together. But there will be times where ourselves as the appropriate select committee on appropriations and select committee on human settlement, we will be engaging, and very necessary is to do oversight. What we see on the slides there, the expenditure that so many percentage has been spent in so and so province. This province is doing well. We applaud that, but with caution. We need to go to the ground ourselves as well. As much as Select Committee on Human Settlement is doing that, we also want to see that what is on the paper is relevant or is speaking to the service delivery on the ground. That we really need to do. Having said that, honorable members and the colleagues, the other point is that the non-compliance of provinces when transferring funds to housing agencies, I have spoken to that in my previous question. Are there measures that are being put in place to mitigate? Because there was a reason why the DORA framework requires this kind of reporting. Do you have measures? And I want to believe that you have looked into this as you met as the technical team or the technical MINMEC. My last question is the specific steps. What are the specific steps that are being taken to ensure that there is alignment between municipal IDPs, provincial and national plans to avoid incoherent on performance? I know that there has always been an outcry from the municipalities and the province, the municipalities, because I'm talking from experience as having been in the provincial level. Then when they do the IDPs, the participant of national departments and provinces, it's questionable, and it's really frustrating the municipalities, and hence the expenditure and the plannings, they are not speaking to what is expected or what is planned by the other spheres of government. Though we know that the conditional grant is, or the budget is attached to the conditions, is very specific, what needs to be spent on, and what needs, you understand that this conditional grant, I cannot spend it on anything else except for the condition. Let me thank the minister for emphasizing that we should all understand that there's a reason why we changed from the Department of Housing to Human Settlement. We don't talk about RDPs, houses, and all of that. Why we have Spluma in the equation? There's a reason why. So the department is not only responsible for building houses. The department is there to deal with the settlement, the human settlement, to develop the human settlement. And there are many other issues that are attached to that. I'm going to leave this to members of the committee to add to the questions that I have raised. I see only one hand, members. Okay. There are two members of the committee that want to speak to this. A very interesting subject. I want to believe. Honorable Ryder, I think other members are still digesting. They will come as and when we discuss. Honorable Ryder, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. If they're digesting, they're luckier than me. I haven't had breakfast yet because of our nice early start. Good morning to yourself, the Chair, the Minister, and all of the colleagues online. Yes, thank you for taking the time. Chair, before I get into questions and comments on the presentations themselves, I'd like to actually raise the issue around the delivery of the presentations. So these presentations were circulated after, close to 1 o'clock on Monday, which really doesn't give sufficient time for digesting of such a comprehensive and informative set of slides, and certainly doesn't give us a lot of time to consult. And I think that you made the point yourself, Chair, that we are the Appropriations Committee, and there's a Human Settlements Committee that looks after these things. It would have been wonderful to have an opportunity to consult properly with them, and perhaps as well with some of the metros, some of the local municipalities and so on. But getting these slides at the late stage that we did, I think it's most unfortunate that we haven't really had a chance to empower ourselves properly. And hence my question in the chat group, which may seem ill-informed, but the reality is that the documentation that we have, the DORA, that we've dealt with in the past, is that this is a local government grant. It's now emerged, of course, that it's local government managed by province, unless you're a metro. And of course, the number of metros is quite few, and some provinces don't have any metros. And this looks to be a little bit problematic. So I think that especially in Gauteng, some of the numbers that were given out, and of course I have a personal interest in Gauteng. It's the province that I represent in the National Council of Provinces. And the numbers coming out of Gauteng were particularly worrying because, first of all, there's substantial underspending. There's a sacrifice, so some rollover was given, but some budget has been sacrificed and returned to the national pot. But then, if one considers the comment that was made that they also used transfers to the Human Settlements Development Grant to further hide some of the spending, it just goes to show that there's a problem within the province with this grant. Perhaps they're not sure how to use it, perhaps they don't have the capacity, etc. That's particularly concerning in Gauteng when you consider that there's 3 metros in Gauteng. So those metros are spending their own money, and the province should be looking after the smaller municipalities. So yeah, I think if a deeper drill down into those numbers is going to be extremely relevant to me from a Gauteng perspective. And perhaps then a question to Treasury, if one considers how the MIG funding is done on the basis of business plans and so on, and managed through municipalities, local municipalities, it's not impossible that this grant gets done in the same way. I think that perhaps looking at some sort of an accreditation process might also be very useful, because it looks to me like province either doesn't have the political will or the expertise to spend the money adequately. So certainly I think that we need to have a look. You know, one needs to understand 41 municipalities around South Africa got a clean audit at the last audit by the Auditor General. That means that there are 41 municipalities that are running pretty well. Now, understandably, many of these are in the Western Cape and all falling under the same province, which is regarded as competent as well. But in the other municipalities where they're achieving clean audits, you know, surely there should be some sort of an incentive for that, and you know, perhaps giving them accreditation to do their own expenditure on a grant like this would be useful and something worth looking at, because it looks to me like the provinces, Gauteng certainly, and some of the other provinces are not showing any political will in terms of actually spending this money. And I do think that it is a new grant, and so yeah, we must give a little bit of leeway for that, certainly, and people need to get their heads around it, and I certainly would like to. So but I think Minister Kabaya also mentioned the mismatch of the budget cycle, which I think could be quite relevant, particularly when one considers the timeframes involved in local government, when you're looking at, you know, employing staff or restructuring departments, etc., and the negotiations and the arrangements that need to go with that. So to adopt a new grant and realign yourselves in order to spend that, and then still go through the process of the procurement process, which is particularly tedious with the MFMA. Yeah, I think there are going to be delays, certainly. And also the town planning aspects. And I mean, I think this is now perhaps a question for Minister Kabaya and your team, is that, you know, what are we trying to achieve with this grant? And I'm not sure it's been well expressed to me. Now, there's a comment that this is phase 3. We're not sure what happened in phase 1 or 2, but what are the steps? So absolutely, as the chairperson said, we need to follow the money. So we need to understand what is the end goal. Are we formalizing informal settlements? Is that the plan behind this? Have we given up on housing projects and accepted that that informal settlements are a reality that we can't get rid of? You know, is this a plan to start dealing out site and service? And of course, you know, there's town planning considerations that need to happen with that. So yeah, I think I need to understand a little bit better what the plan is. Are we just putting up temporary infrastructure? And there was an interesting term that came out there, and I missed it. I didn't jot it down in time, but a good term where you indicated that some of these were merely kind of stopgap arrangements to ensure that people got temporary services until such time as they can be accommodated in a formal housing project. But, you know, how much money are we spending on that? Is that the best use of our money? You know, are we looking at reblocking? What is the actual plan behind this grant? What are we actually trying to achieve? That would be what I would be most interested in finding out. And it would, of course, have been quite useful to hear from a couple of, if not mayors, certainly MMCs of human settlements. And I look forward to the MECs giving us some indicators about, you know, what they're experiencing on the ground. Perhaps after the MECs have spoken, there might be some more questions that come about. But yeah, Chair, thank you. I think it was an interesting presentation and much more work to do on this. I think that I certainly need to get to understand this grant a lot better before I'm comfortable with it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. Honorable Njatu.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good day, and also to the Minister and the MECs, National Treasury and Human Settlement, all the members. Chairperson, I will focus on only two points. The one will be in terms of intergovernmental relations. My question, Chairperson, will be understanding that human settlement, there's a huge backlog. There's a huge backlog in human settlement across the country. And my question will be to what is being done? What is being done by provincial caucus to ensure that intergovernmental relations are tightened, to ensure that there are no unnecessary delays in processes such as reports, approval of plans, etc., and smooth implementation is achieved. So and on the question, Chair, is for me just to understand as to where is the problem in terms of delays, so that to make sure that this process is being fast-tracked of human settlement. Then there's the second point, Chairperson, will be on underspending. Also to emphasize again on the backlog that we are having in human settlement, and how do we then say that we have an underspending and there is a backlog? So whether the reported underspending could lead to fiscal dumping or wastage, and how is this being mitigated? Chairperson, I think for now, that is what I would want to understand, so that one look in terms of effective and efficient delivery of housing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Njatu. Is there any other hand?
No, Chairperson.
Okay.
No, there's no other hand.
All right. I think I have something that I've left out. I thought members will raise it, and Honorable Ryder came close to it. And I want to say to the Minister, together with your team and my comrade there, Comrade Nongab, Honorable Lukonziwe, this zero expenditure, I know, I don't know if it's the doctor who was making a presentation or the presenter after her who tried to explain, but it doesn't go down well with us, more especially in Eastern Cape, where we know that we have challenges in as far as service delivery is concerned. If other provinces were able to spend 80-something%, what is it that you're still planning? Really, it doesn't go well with us. I don't know, because where there is lack of expenditure, we are looking at what is usually happening towards the end of the financial year. If people cannot get the rollovers, there will be fiscal dumping, spending for the sake of spending and not spending according to the needs of the communities. It doesn't go down well with us that you are at zero. Maybe the numbers needs to be verified, but I think we need to talk amongst ourselves as a select committee that during our times of doing oversight and provincial weeks and other things, we need to talk amongst ourselves as a committee and strategize. How do we intervene? How do we make people account? How do we see to it that the community get the benefit of the monies that are being given or allocated for them to get the services. With that, let me start with Treasury, and then I'll be directed by or be assisted by Human Settlement. After Treasury, the responses, and then I'll hand over to the Minister, who will have a bite if she so wishes, and the team and the MECs. Treasury, over to you, Team Treasury.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, to yourself and all the members. From our side, I'm going to ask, Jan Hatting speaking, Honorable Chair. I'll ask Ugali to kick off.
I can't see
you. Sorry, Honorable Chair. Let me just switch it on.
Okay,
is
it's
it,
fine.
is it, can you see me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member, and thank you for the questions. On our side, I'm going to ask Ugali to kick off, and then perhaps towards the end, I'll come to try and explain some of the reasons why we've seen delayed expenditure, and perhaps I can also respond to the issue about the different financial years. Ugali?
Thank you, Chairperson, Minister, honorable members. I'll also ask Emmanuel to add, maybe Chair, maybe just to start with a few comments that the Minister raised, that maybe from National Treasury side, what are we doing about it? Maybe just to confirm that indeed, we are in the process of reviewing all grants, and I think in due time an indication will be given to the committee in terms of what the work has done. And maybe just to comment as well on to agree with you, Chair, on inviting agencies to come and report, and perhaps maybe as well with municipalities. It will be good, Chair, that they invited, because the issue that we have is that we due to maybe even different financial years, the reconciliation of numbers of performance, it becomes difficult to keep track in terms of for which year are we reporting for. So I think that's going to be really important, Chair, that meeting be done. And also maybe just to indicate that on the conditional grants, the formulas for conditional grants really are determined by sectors themselves and are not necessarily aligned to the equitable share. So the reason I'm raising this is because of the issue of Northern Cape has been highlighted a bit, and if the sectors see fit that maybe there is a need to give more to Northern Cape, given also, I mean, the expenditure that they incur in transporting materials because of the vast kilometers or distance that they travel. So that the sectors are welcome to do so, because the formulas of conditional grants are not really kind of population driven. So I'll ask Emmanuel to add on in terms of what are we doing on the inconsistencies, Chair. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank you, Chair.
Mr. Pillay, over to you.
Yes, yes, thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the question that you indicated earlier around the perhaps causes around reporting and the inconsistencies that we see there. We didn't do an analysis of the sector as such in terms of determining a cause for the reporting. But generally, from our experience with other conditional grants, especially infrastructure-related grants in other sectors that we have, There are a few things that generally come up as reasons for poor reporting or gaps in reporting. I think the first thing is Honorable Ryder mentioned this as well about it being a new grant. Technically speaking, it's not a new grant because it was sort of in the component of the HSDG for 2 years to serve as a planning platform. But generally, new grants tend to have that hiccup in terms of spending, performance, and even reporting. So that could be the first thing. The other thing is around the systems in terms of reporting. Generally, the system of reporting is led by the National Transferring Officer, which coordinates the reporting around the sectors in terms of the provinces. So there could be some deficiency in the system of reporting, could be at the national level or even at the provincial level. And I suppose the last one could be the actual capacity of provinces to collect the information, verify it, and report it as well. We had instances in other sectors where key people have left the monitoring and reporting unit, and then the reporting tends to suffer over there. So if there's not enough key people who are able to report and verify, then it becomes difficult. Thanks, Chair.
Chairperson,
Thank
can
you.
I then
Who's
try
that?
to?
Mr. Hutton?
Is Jan Hutton again?
Okay.
Honorable Chair, so let me address a couple of issues, and I'll try to be as quickly as I can.
Your video, please, Mr. Hutton.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So one of the points that's been flagged historically in Parliament is whether, if we change the financial years between national, provincial, and local government, will that solve the problem? Chair, and I'm not sure if it came out today, but I know it was raised before, and our position as a Treasury is it will complicate matters. And the reason for that is from a planning and a budget preparation perspective, Chair, there's a reason why we conclude the national and provincial budget process. We translate all the transfers and what is supposed to go to local government well in advance in their budget preparation process. So from a Treasury perspective, we think if we consolidate the financial years, it's going to add difficulty because the budget process as we know it today, Honorable Chair, historically was over a window of about 16 months. Now I'm talking prior to 1994. We've managed to squeeze that to about 9 months now. So if we have to bring the allocation process forward in order to have the information that fit into the municipal process, Chair, we think it's going to compromise the national budget preparation process. The second thing, Chair, that we think will happen is the Auditor General, as it is, do the audits across national, provincial in terms of the Public Finance Management Act and the audit for the Municipal Finance Management Act slightly later. If you bring those two processes together, Chairperson, the Office of the Auditor General won't be able to cope with the workload. So that's the first point I want to address, Chair. Secondly, as far as the inconsistency in numbers, Chair, what is important, the cycles is different. So from a public finance management perspective, the financial year starts on the 1st of April and it ends by 31st of March. On the municipal side, it starts on the 1st of July and it ends by the 30th of June. In order to deal with this vacuum, Chair, and to get the reporting to become meaningful, we have changed the system progressively over time, and with your blessing as this committee, Chair, all the flow of money from a national government perspective is being transferred between the 1st of April and then by 31st of March. So that means it's in a 9-month window. Municipalities then have another quarter, Chair, to incur the expenditure. So to deal with this reporting challenge that we've had historically, we had to do that, Chairperson, and it's entrenched now as part of the practices. Chair, what we also try to do is when we publish the preliminary numbers, both in terms of national provinces, in terms of Section 71, and municipalities in national provincial in terms of Section 32 of the Public Finance Management Act, and municipalities in terms of Section 71. What we try to do, Chair, is there's the preliminary results. So for instance, the municipal financial year has ended by the 30th of June. The law allows municipalities then to report to national government in the different to the national government a month thereafter, and Chair, then we consolidate that information. So you can imagine, Chairperson, if we have to consolidate the information for provinces and national government, we need to go through a verification process. The same apply on the municipal side. But what we do, Chair, is we keep track of the information, the preliminary numbers as a start. That translates into a little bit more firmer numbers, because 2 months after the close of the financial year, we all have to submit our information to the Auditor General for auditing. So our colleague has referred to the 31st of August. That's when the pre-audit numbers will be submitted to the Auditor General. The audit process will be concluded, and Chair, then later, once the audit process concluded, then we have the audit numbers. So Chair, the point is the numbers change consistently till the audit is concluded. And I think that's important for the members to just understand and recognize that. Chair, as far as the delay and why we have underspending in this cycle, Chair, now I'm referring to the municipal cycle, I think we should not forget that we had a local government election in November. It normally takes the council a few months to constitute itself. And then what normally happens, Chair, is the management team is replaced in some cases in totality. Now, Chair, that creates challenges for the implementation, not only of overall finances, but on grant management specifically, Chair. So if you ask me what is the reasons behind some of the delays that's been shared with you today, I would argue strongly the impact of a local government election. So it creates uncertainty, it creates instability, and therefore the decision-making process, Chair, is a bit compromised in the process. Perhaps the last point, Chair, from my side is that we do allow for rollovers, and there's a procedure that we have issued for all municipalities to follow in terms of the DORA process, but we've also articulated in our circulars, because the DORA say you can ask for a rollover, and as long as it is for legitimate projects that's been formalized prior to the end of a financial year. So if there's a legitimate commitment, then the Treasury have no choice, Chair, but to approve that rollover. But just for the benefit of the members, the procedures and the steps is articulated in the budget circular that we've issued for local government. For instance, in early, it was early in March, a week after the national budget, Chair, and there all the steps that the municipality must follow is articulated in that process, and the same rules apply. Chair, then the last point I want to make to the benefit is I agree with my colleague that the entities that do receive transfers need to be invited to this committee, because as a Treasury, generally speaking, Chair, we're a bit nervous or uncomfortable if transfers are made outside the intended beneficiary, because sometimes, although it's recorded as expenditure, but it's not real expenditure in the sense of service delivery. And it makes the tracking of the funding, Chair, that you've referred to, how to follow the money, it makes it complicated, because when it's outside the provincial reporting system, and it's in some cases outside the municipal reporting system, we understand why in this sector there's a need from time to time to do that. But Chair, as a general rule, the Treasury is very nervous when we do get requests like this, because it circumvents the accountability system. At the same time, we do acknowledge, Honourable Chair, that if there's a capacity challenge, then sometimes the way to circumvent this is to try and get somebody else to stand in. So I think as a collective, Chair, we need to find a different way to help building capacity. We've tried quite hard to assist the metros to improve their planning and their budgeting system and the alignment between the IDPs, their strategies. But Chair, it's not a perfect solution. And let me stop there. Chair, I hope this assists the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Was that the last response from Treasury?
Yes, Chair, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I hand over to Minister Kubai? Human Settlement.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to request that we allow the MECs to respond specifically to their issues, and then I'll come in to respond to some of the issues together with the team. I'll ask the CFO because there are quite a number of issues around questions. So let's start with the MEC of Eastern Cape, Honourable Nkotsiwe.
Okay, Honourable Nkotsiwe.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning to the committee, the MECs, and the Minister for Human Settlement, and also the officials of the department. On the issue that has been raised as a concern on the Eastern Cape, I have seen in the presentation that the commitment has been done that the expenditure is going to be made in the second quarter. The issue that was put before the department is that there has been a disagreement or a bone of contention between the funding agreement being signed by the HOD for Human Settlement in the province and the CEO for HDA. But that has taken so long. But that has since been signed on the 26th of July. So hopefully, with that being made, things will be much better going forward. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Nkotsiwe. Any other MEC who wants to come in before I hand back to the Minister?
Chair, MEC
Yes.
Limpopo.
Okay.
Bioscope Makam.
Okay. Libuleng into.
I must indicate that I'm attending 2 meetings at the same time. We have got the bilaterals with the provincial treasurer here. I will do what you are requesting me, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. I wanted to comment first on what Honorable Raider indicated about the objective of the grant, whether we are moving away from the HSDG which you will normally call for your RDP houses. Myself and the MEC Kotiwe, coming from rural provinces, will be best maybe to share the experience that as much as it's good to continue building RDP houses to the needy families or households, now it is coming up very clear that people will want us as government to service sites and hand them to them and build their required houses. What you will see if you come maybe drive around our province, we do have informal settlement. Part of the informal settlement that we'll speak about in our case will also be an area where it's just adjacent to the town, where people maybe through the traditional leadership allocate them sites, build very nice and very big house, which are without services. And as a result, in time to respond, and we supported the minister when she came to the portfolio and started to upscale the allocation of the informal settlement upgrading grant. And I still want to, but I'm one of the provinces in terms of the report that was given here that is not necessarily performing well on the grant, but mainly because of poor planning. It's not necessary that the grant is not necessarily required to be supported, that it should continue or to be increased, even the allocation that we have. It's mainly because of our officials' poor planning. You find in some instances they allocate a project for informal settlement upgrading when there is no bulk services that will connect for that. And it's a matter that we are building or resolving in number of cases, relocating some of the projects. The spending that you see, which is not necessarily impressing from the province of Limpopo, will be a thing of a past not so long, because I'm sitting with my team every now and then to check each and every project that has been allocated, whether it's working. I think the next time we come to report, spending will be high because we have unblocked some of the challenges which were there in some of the projects, but was to answer part of what Honorable Raider has indicated about the grant itself. That's to say, as people on the ground who can share some of the information and the lobby, the Appropriations Select Committee to continue supporting the minister's input in terms of increasing the grant, because that's what people need the most now on the ground. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, MEC. I see MEC Vas.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and let me also greet the Minister and all the MECs from the different provinces and our senior management present in this meeting. Now, I think, Honorable Chairperson, as a Northern Cape Province, we concur with the report from the Minister. I think that as a province, we managed to spend our money, and I think since the inception of this program, we are doing very well as a province, despite challenges that we are facing. And I think the Minister alluded to it in terms of our baseline, because it's one of the things that are hampering our service delivery to communities. But also, just to say, Chairperson, in terms of the servicing of sites, we managed to deliver close to 7,000 sites. But the challenge now that we're sitting is that the absence of top structures. So we are just worried about possible vandalism. That's why we are from the view that we should speed up the process in terms of top structures. Otherwise, we will have possible land invasion if we don't manage it accordingly. But overall, we are pushing as a province, and with the monies that we get, we make sure that we spend the monies to speed up service delivery in our province. But we really want to thank the team from National and from the Minister for the support that we're getting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, MEC. I see the hand of I don't know who's this MEC, but I see.
It's MEC Tukwana, Chair, from Free State.
Okay, I
That is-
see it's iPhone. MEC Tukwana, Free State.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to the members of the Select Committee, the Minister, and the Treasury and National Department of Human Settlement officials that are here, MECs. I think we agree with the concerns raised both by the report that was tabled by Treasury as well as the HS. In our case, there are a number of challenges that we are facing, and I think we will be dealing with some of these, and others are on working programs. For instance, the EIAs, the approvals therefore are sitting somewhere. And we will be engaging with our colleagues in this tier to really fast track the approval thereof and looking into all this, because they take too long and they affect our own planning. The water use licenses also are a challenge that needs to be attended to. In some instances, in our mining areas, in our mining towns, the water levels are very high. And this affects our contractors, and you have challenges of with variations orders. Once you do that, you're going to have the Auditor General also making some findings. This is something that needs to be looked at, because these are some of the challenges that are not foreseen, and the contractor meets them when it gets to the site. The cost of building materials is also a concern now, and this is really giving us tough times with regard to some of the projects and some of the contractors. With regard to making sure that we have the social compacts, we have started a process that would help us deal with all these things and make sure that in the future we do not experience these challenges that we've been experiencing. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, MEC. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? If none, I will hand over back to the Minister.
Chairperson, can I request that Dr. Sokoko and the CFO, Lucy Mbele, to respond?
Okay.
I'll come close.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm going to respond to the question with regard to what is it, which was already partly responded to by the MECs, of what is it that we are trying to do with informal settlements upgrading. Remember, we indicated that there are two areas that we want to do in informal settlements to do in a nutshell. One is formalization. It's important to do formalization, as you know that there are various groups of people that live in informal settlements, and we don't want them to wait for houses. We want them, once the settlement has been formalized, to be able to build for themselves. We encourage them not to wait for government, but to also provide the housing for themselves. And that will also allow us to also integrate various income groups within the formalized settlement. The second part that we want in terms of informal settlements upgrading is to ensure then that we provide that neighborhood infrastructure which allows the informal settlement now not to be looked at as still informal settlements, but to ensure then that all that infrastructure that is required for sustainability of that settlement is installed. And that's what we do in informal settlements upgrading. And that's why then we provide bulk infrastructure, which is important that we provide it in phase 2. So we pay for the design of that bulk infrastructure, whether it's bulk water, bulk sewer, or even electricity. We provide funding for the design and installation of that bulk infrastructure. We also provide funding for connector services of that bulk infrastructure, as well as reticulation of that bulk infrastructure now at site level. So that is important to us to ensure then that at site level, all these things are done. At settlement level, remember we indicated that it's important of all that infrastructure, and therefore the road infrastructure is important. Stormwater management is important in terms of the settlement. So that is the systematic way in which we are providing the upgrading. Also, I just want to also indicate that informal settlement upgrading it forms, if you in other words, a pipeline for housing development. It's not housing development. It provides all that formalization and infrastructure, but the basis for housing development is easy then if you then do all those proper things that needs to be done with regard to informal settlements upgrading. There was also the issues around intergovernmental relations, which I think the MECs have already responded to, that I would also not respond to. The issues around I think the major parts of the questions will be, with the regard to finance, will be responded to by the acting CFO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. From my side, there's a couple of issues that were raised by the chair regarding the under expenditure. Chair, I think my colleague Jan Hatting from National Treasury has indicated the reasons due to the municipal elections, because most of those municipalities, Chair, when we tried to find out the reasons for them being underspending on the ground, it was basically because of the local government elections, and most of them is because of the coalition governments, and they are struggling to sit. And certain metros have indicated that even when they want to pass the budget, they've been struggling for the budget council to approve the adjustment budgets. So, Chair, the other issue that the chair has raised sharply is the transferring of funds. And Chair, we as human settlements and the sector, we did agree that indeed transfers, we are recording them as an expenditure, because when the province transfers the funds to any other organs of state to implement projects on their behalf, it is reflected as an expenditure. However, Chair, we are acknowledging that indeed it is not an expenditure. Chair, if I remember very well, together with my colleagues from National Treasury, we introduced the Human Settlement Development a transition guide on the classification of expenditure. When we brought this together with National Treasury is because of the same reasons. And this transition guide was supposed to be implemented for the financial year, I think 21-22 financial year, but however, it was the implementation thereof has been deferred. But Chair, that transition guide on the classification of expenditure was about to address the very same issue, because we just picked up that funds are transferred and we are reflecting them as an expenditure, whereas it's not indeed an expenditure because they're transferred, they're sitting somewhere else and as not as an expenditure. So Chair, that transition guide was supposed to assist all of us that when the funds are transferred, we don't reflect them as an expenditure. We need to reflect them as such on the financial statements of the provinces. And then Chair, what we did from our side, yes, we have the measures in place. At our technical min-make that we had on Monday, we have started on calling HDA, because HDA is our entity and most of the provinces are utilizing HDA to implement projects on their behalf. We requested HDA to present to the technical min-make. Remember, Chair, as per the Act, when they enter into an implementation protocol or an agreement, they're supposed to be the payment schedule. There's also supposed to be deliverables. So we requested HDA that going forward, they need to report on how much has been the opening balances, the movement thereof, as well as the deliverables, because it's based on what they've agreed on. And Chair, as well, when you look at the Division of the Revenue Act, when the province is reporting to us, they also need to report on the money that has been transferred to any other organs of state that is implementing projects on their behalf. They need also to report on the expenditure thereof. But Chair, what we did as well as a mitigation factor, we had a MINMEC after the end of the financial year of the provinces. The National Department, together with National Treasury, we went in detail to go and look at all these transfers. We are having a record of all the transfers that we made by the 30th of March 2022, end of the financial year of the provinces. And what we agreed together with the provinces is that when we are reporting on the new year, we are not going to forget about that expenditure. We are reporting at it as if it's an opening balance. So Chair, on the new year, we'll have a presentation that talks to the opening balances. The opening balances are all the funds that were transferred to the other organs of state to implement projects, and we need to the provinces to also, on a monthly basis, to report together with the implementing agents. They need to start sending out the reports to us. And we agreed as well as technical people that we as a national department, we have to follow the money. We are going to follow the money to those implementing agents. For example, Gauteng province, they're utilizing HDA as well as the Gauteng Partnership Grant, which is their own entity. We agreed that we are going to monitor as well the performance of the HSDG or all the Human Settlement Grants funds that are sitting with all the implementing agents. So we are going to do that as well. And Chair, as a matter of the non-compliance as well that the Chair has raised, that what are the measures that we are putting in place? Chair, last year, we issued out as a national department a circular, the circular that is talking to these transfers. So we have picked up that even if we had a circular, because we thought that issuing out a circular, talking to Section 16 was going to assist that we are limiting the number of transfers that are happening, especially at the 31st of or at the last quarter. When you look at the circular that we have issued out, it was clear that we are requesting that provinces, even though that we know that there's nothing wrong, Chair, in appointing another organ of state to implement projects on the province's behalf. There's nothing wrong. It is allowed by the Act. However, as a national department, as a measure to make sure that we don't see the transfers that National Treasury has been talking about, the transfers that are happening at the last quarter of the financial year. So we issued out a circular that was saying that provinces should not make the biggest transfers towards on the last quarter of the financial year. However, Chair, we have seen that happening again. Hence, we are having new recommendations for this financial year. Because this financial year, we are putting new recommendations to complement that instruction note that we have ended, where we have discussed it. Chair, at our technical MINMEC, I think it still needs some further work because most of the provinces, they were not comfortable with what we are putting forward. However, Chair, once MINMEC has approved those recommendations that we are putting forward, we will bring them back to the committee to say this is what we have agreed as a sector, because we agreed that we need to agree as a sector, because this is the biggest challenge that we are sitting with. And Chair, I think I've covered all of the other issues that have been raised, and my colleagues have covered some of the issues, Chair. Thank you so much. Unless if there's something that I've left behind, Chair, I'll be welcome to come in and respond on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pele. Anyone else? And now it's back to the Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think quite a number of issues have been responded to by the MECs, as well as the team for the acting DDG responsible, as well as the acting CFO. I think for me, Chair, as we conclude, maybe just to flag, I'm happy to hear National Treasury talking about grants. I think it's Kaleletsang, because when I engaged with Madijan initially, there was no agreement. So I'm happy to hear that this movement of funds is within our control at the beginning of the financial year, because what happens in the IGR section in National Treasury, majority of the time you find that when you want to do adjustments, then they tell you if you do this, you are doing an imbalance in terms of budget and what they give per provinces. So you're affecting the allocations per province. So I'm happy to hear that that is within our ambit, and we'll definitely do that, because that has been my gripe since I arrived here. And the DDG responsible kept on saying, no, we can't do that because it affects the overall. And that's what led even to the letter that I wrote to Minister Bodongwana, which we are going to have a bilateral meeting between ourselves and the National Treasury. So I'm happy with that. The second issue, Mr. Hatton speaks about the complicated, what is it? He said it will be complicated when the financial systems are aligned or the budget cycles are aligned. It complicates National Treasury, but if we are to change, but the current system, actually it's an impediment to service delivery. So the challenges we see in service delivery, and that's what we must take a decision of, whether we are going to do things to please National Treasury in terms of how they work, or it's in the best interest of South African citizens. Because the alignment of plans, it's critical across the three spheres, especially in the sector. When you have a metro planning at a particular time, for example, we passed the budget, the business plans for the provinces earlier on. At that time, we were approving the business plans for the provinces. Metros were not yet ready with their business plans. Now, by the time we approve the business plans of the metros, there is misalignment. And this is what affects the performance of grants, but it also affects, more importantly, service delivery. Because you'd find that a municipality, just to make it simpler for members to understand, if you take the city of Johannesburg, for example, you'd have Gauteng planning to say, for example, we've got the following mega cities, even within Gauteng, within Johannesburg. But you'll have the city of Johannesburg in terms of their provision for the bulk services, not aligned to the plan of the provinces. And because of this disjuncture, that's why you find sometimes projects will be finished and not completed, but also we have quite a number of projects that are halfway. So you find that they're funded this year, province gives money, and then the municipality doesn't spend in time, and then province has to reallocate and all those things. And you are not able to have the synchrony of the planning and the system within the same time. So I hear what Mr. Hatton is saying. He's talking from the point of National Treasury, but from the point of service delivery, the misalignment is not good. And therefore the changes will not complicate our lives, actually will make our lives easier. So, but we'll do that in engagement at the bilateral, so that we do have to have tangible evidence that we can look at and we can address, because it doesn't make sense that an MEC of human settlements in a province does not have a say in terms of the plans and how things are to be done in a metro. So you enforce it, but the budget cycles as well, you are not having the alignment of planning. So that's where the problem is. And once the councillors then come back and say to you, no, this has been approved by our councils, therefore we can't change it. It becomes even an issue for us, the budgets. And also, Chair, just to indicate, what we have seen with the coalition governments in this administration that has started, the delay in establishment of the councils, the delays or non-approval of budgets and plans in time paralyzes service delivery. It's becoming a consistent matter where we are seeing parties actually trading off with human settlements. Where, for example, previous projects are abandoned, that's why you're going to have what we call unfinished projects or blocked projects, because this council arrives, they take this decision, they go left. Then in the middle of the term, there's a new coalition that has formed, they've removed their previous coalition, then they change the plans. And then there's plans, new plans, they're going right. And you look at the term in terms of planning for us, it becomes a difficulty. This, we are flagging, we have raised it with actually the cabinet, And we're also looking at how best we are going to improve in terms of ensuring that we can even have a stricter oversight, but also together with the MECs, ensure that there is accountability on the ground. So there's quite a lot that MECs have raised. Lastly, just to reaffirm, and Chair, you raised quite a number of things. What are we doing to address? That's why we're talking about the review of the grants. We're talking about monitoring and evaluation that is stricter, working closely at MINMEC as well, but also having sessions specifically that deals with one, the planning and the plans where each metro, each province presents their plans, and then later in terms of performance, each and every province and metro presenting their performance reports, and we are able to critique and analyze it from our side. But also in terms of support where there are challenges, we are able as national department to provide technical support to either municipality and a province, the same that have done. MEC Makama spoke about this, where we were able to support him, and that's why he's seeing the turnaround that he's seeing. Northern Cape the same, Eastern Cape the same. So we are seeing even on other grants, not only on the informal settlement grant as well. Then on the issue of whether we want to change our approach, I think Dr. Sokopo spoke about the services, the continuous HSDG being looking after the building of houses, RDP houses, and this grant specifically making sure that we deal with the formalization of the informal settlements. Have we just given up on dealing with this? We believe that, Chair, that there are some informal settlements that have been there over time, that we have an obligation now to provide services for, but also upgrade them. And what we have urged the municipalities that the current illegal occupation of land needs to be stopped. So municipalities have to take the responsibility of evicting within the required time as per the law. But one of the things that we are currently exploring as the national department is to see if we can set up the support capacity to be able to assist the municipalities where they are not able to evict. But again, one of the things one would want to do, because some of these people don't put them, somebody is leading, is coordinating, whether it's a political party, is an individual that coordinates these people. We would want to start saying, if somebody is responsible to have brought people to go and occupy land illegally, we also go to court to hold those people personally liable. If they have assets, their assets to be taken. If not, they must face imprisonment. Because we can't continue. What we face as the departments, that you find this illegal occupation of land later results for sometimes with loss of life. You put people under a pole, a high voltage of electricity. When then that happens, people die. You put them close to the river banks. When floods come, they die. So we are saying we would want to start looking at that. We have started, I've asked the team to start looking at just a review mechanism around dealing legally with people who are illegally occupying land, and also putting mechanisms to say, how do we hold those who lead that accountable so that we stop this? Because they stop us an opportunity, they deny us an opportunity to plan properly, they deny us an opportunity to budget properly and utilize our resources effectively. And what it does, it creates animosity amongst community members. It creates unhappiness amongst community members, where you find that community members then says, I've been on the waiting list, and these people, because they're in informal settlements, you are making them overtake us, those who are disciplined. So these are some of the things, Chair, that we're looking into in response to the challenge. As we said, it's work in progress. It's a grant that has not been fairly old, but already we are seeing some of the gaps that we must improve. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I see Honorable Ryder's hand is up. Honorable Ryder, do you want to make a follow-up or want to
yes,
clarify?
Please, Chair. Yes, there were some very good comments coming out of those, which have maybe brought a few new themes on, and just some issues that I'd like to raise, perhaps on the responses that we've received. So thank you for the responses. Yeah, look, I think that if you're going to tell us in the presentation that this is a new grant, and then tell us in your responses to the questions that it's not a new grant, Treasury, you begin to lose a little bit of credibility. But yeah, that's not really a question, it's just a comment. Your comments were noted. but if you know, at least be consistent. The minister has spoken about the restructure of the grants and the fact that she's having bilateral discussions with Treasury. Minister, and without preempting those discussions, I do think that it's important for us as the Appropriations Committee to understand that a little bit better. And so by all means, you know, Chair, perhaps it's a good idea to invite the minister back after she has had those bilateral discussions, and we can hear what progress she's made, because clearly, as you say, Chair, we are required to follow the money, and if the money is not being appropriated in a fashion that works for the department, then we need to be on top of that. So, Minister, yeah, good luck with your bilateral discussions, but please keep us informed as to whether it works in your favor, and if not, how it goes forward. Then just, yeah, so in terms of the budget cycle, and I do have tremendous sympathy with Mr. Hatting's comments about the alignment or the need for things to not be aligned. And certainly DORA and the implementation of DORA at a municipal level requires substantial planning and perhaps some lead time in terms of that financial planning and budgeting. So I can understand that there would be a need to not have the reporting periods exactly aligned. However, the fact that province also gets money out of DORA and they're able to be aligned kind of flies in the face of that, or is that the exception that proves the rule, or whatever? But perhaps Mr. Hatting needs to be a little bit more persuasive in terms of that. That again is more a comment than a question. But my biggest issue, Minister, was the last bit that you highlighted, and the fact that we're having this problem with land invasions. And if you have a look at my engagements, it's something that's very close to my heart, because it's also very close to my doorstep, just across the way from me. And I think that your comment about investigating the help that municipalities need is most welcome, because specifically I believe that government regulations and the lockdown regulations, for example, assisted people with land invasions and prevented municipalities from taking eviction action against them. The reality is we now have people that have been living in an area for 2 years, and with brick and mortar structures, and so evicting them is becoming more and more difficult, and yet government policy prevented those evictions from taking place. Your comments about the fact that land invasions deny your department the planning, the town planning issues, the layouts, the sanitation and water reticulation systems, etc., are well taken on board. And Minister, that to me is the most pressing problem that we have, certainly in Gauteng at the moment, in the south of Gauteng, where the land invasions have effectively been permitted to carry on over a number of years without being stopped. And I'd like you just to perhaps tell me, this informal settlement upgrade grant, is it there as well? Is there capacity? And I think that your CFO mentioned a number of issues that it was dealing with, like laying out the bulk supply, etc., etc. But is there also space in this grant for the procurement of land? Because I think that everyone knows, as soon as you start to reblock an informal settlement, as soon as you start to add those things that the CFO mentioned in terms of the roads that are required, the open spaces, the space for government services, etc. As soon as you start opening up the spaces, and you have to move certain shelters and shacks, and so as you expand, the number of people can't be accommodated on the same size piece of land. So is there space in this grant for the procurement of land as well? If you could just help me with that. But please, Minister, keep us informed in terms of the plans to assist municipalities, because it is currently an unfunded mandate that the municipalities are dealing with. That's something that I've been mentioning for quite some time. In terms of the PI Act, the municipalities are finding it incredibly difficult to comply with the PI Act, and so are often left in a situation where they just leave land invasions be, because they feel that they are powerless. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. I saw the minister opened her video. I think she wanted to have the last bite.
Chair, before she goes, I just want to add one comment, if I may, is that it's really nice to hear a minister on that has a good handle of the issues that the department is grappling with. I'm not sure that we've got all the solutions yet, but I'm quite pleased to hear the minister talking today. It actually gives me a little bit of confidence. Thank you.
Malibongwe. Siyabonga. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you to Honorable Ryder. We try our best to see, yeah, indeed, we don't have the solutions, all of them at hand, but we are trying our best to intervene. Perhaps as well, Honorable Ryder, on the issues, your comments are noted. We'll avail ourselves to accountability, but also to share some of the information so that you can also share your experiences in your own constituencies, because it always helps for members of parliament to give feedback, as one can be everywhere. The issue around land, yes, we do provide for acquisition of land, but also government had also taken a decision to transfer almost 14,000 hectares of land from publicly owned institutions or companies or even organizations to human settlements for human settlements purposes. So that is currently assisting us, but where we do not have and we have land need within an area and want to relocate people or perhaps want to decant and build, that land is bought for that purpose of dealing with the informal settlement upgrade. But major issue that we are looking at, we have engaged with the infrastructure fund. We've also engaged with some of our entities, and also we've brought in DBSA. One of the things that we believe will help this sector, especially in dealing with informal settlements, is to be able to fast track and improve the capacity in building social housing. When you look at majority of the people who are actually found either as backyard dwellers or as well as what we call informal settlements, many of them actually would be able to pay a low-cost rent or even affordable housing. So would want to fast track that and ensure that we could be able to relieve the burden in informal settlements for the people, especially moving them into their social housing closer to their work environment and closer to where the economic opportunities are. Once we are ready with that as well, we'll go public to say this is how we are going to roll out. We've started working together with them, and they're working on plans to be able to assist us in fast tracking this area. We do believe that especially in terms of your urban areas, they will do a huge impact in terms of dealing away with informal settlements. Thank you very much, Chair. That's it. I don't want to take more time, but appreciate the engagement, appreciate the feedback from members in terms of the work that we are doing. It does assist us to improve on the service that we provide to our citizens. Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for your patience with us and allowing us to be able to explain in detail.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I think on behalf of the committee, the Select Committee on Appropriations, there has been some complaints that in most cases when we invite ministers to our committee, they don't avail themselves. And I knew that you will avail yourself. You are one of those who are always respond to the calls, whether in the NCOP or the committees. I'm saying this because I know even in the province where you're deployed politically, you're always available. We really appreciate you taking us serious, because we want to have an understanding and raise issues and not appropriate money as a rubber stamping process. We should have an understanding and be on par with you and the team. So on behalf of the committee, we really want to appreciate for all the participants led by yourself, your team from Human Settlement nationally, the MECs who were able to be available to make time for us. Thank you very much. And the members of the portfolio committees, I don't know if there are any, but if there are, whoever has participated, we want to thank you very, very much. And we would like to release you. And also Team Treasury, we are always C2 same WhatsApp group all the time. There's no meeting where we will not have National Treasury. They are always there to assist or in making sure. I see my MECs here. Do you want to greet me?
I wanted to greet you, Chairperson. I wanted to greet you and say you look beautiful. And thank you very
Okay, okay. That's the MEC for Human Settlement in Mpumalanga. Honorable Ryder, when you were speaking, you said you proudly represent Gauteng. So I had no choice but also to claim my territory when the MEC is there to hear what are the issues that we are raising. So we will like to release the members of the provinces and the minister with those ways of thanking you to engage with us, and request members of the committee to remain on the platform so that we deal with how our internal issues, which is the
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Bye-bye,
Thank you,
honorable members.
Bye-bye, members.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye,
Minister. Honorable members, let me check with the Secretariat that do we have a quorum to can adopt the minutes? Lubabalo? Lubabalo, I can't hear you. Estelle, can you help? Maybe struggling with the network.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, I was struggling to unmute. We did have a quorum. I'm just double checking whether all the we had.
Okay.
Yes, I'm just checking if everybody is still here. Yes, Chairperson, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we then go to the last item of the day, the minutes of the 3rd of August 2022? Can we go down and see? That was the meeting where we had a presentation by FFC on DORA. Those are the attendees. I hope the names and surnames or initials are spelled correctly. Thank you. Let's move. Still attendees. Page 4. Members have received the minutes in time. I think if there's anything they might have identified what needs to be amended. Page 6. And page 7, that's the last page, the last but one. We are at the last page. Can I get a mover for the adoption of the minutes as a true
I'll move,
reflection
Chair.
of the discussion? Yes.
I'll move.
Thank you,
second, Chair.
Honorable Ryder. Secondly.
The Toy second, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tutoit, for seconding. We have come to the end of our meeting, honorable members. Thank you so much. From appropriations, I think we will meet again next week. I know you have seen the amended program. Am I correct, Babalo? You have sent the amended program to the members. Okay. Thank you. Until we meet again next week, honorable members, thank you. Please take care. We will meet at 2 o'clock on the sitting. I see Lubabalo wants to say something. I hope you are able to be heard. Lubabalo?
Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you are.
Oh, yeah. Chairperson. No, Chairperson, I wanted to one next meeting, Chairperson. But remember, next week, you can't hear me in Naja.
Can you turn off the video, maybe? Without the video?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now? Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you're far much better.
Oh, thank you, Chair. No, I wanted to indicate, Chairperson, that our next meeting will be what, Chair. Remember, next week, Chairperson is not available, so we're meeting next week.
Oh, by the way, Honorable Ryder, are you going with me?
My passport is ready, Chair. I'm just waiting for the invitation.
Hey, we're going to have a good trip and work. Thank you very much, honorable members. See you then, 2 o'clock for plenary. Thank you. Keep well.